I overheard her tell her mom, "If nothing better works out, I'll settle with him." I didn't interrupt, just packed my stuff and left while she was still on the phone. My note: something better worked out. Good luck settling. She called 40 times that night. I never answered. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The smell of searing garlic and rosemary filled the apartment, the soundtrack to a perfectly ordinary Thursday. I was at the stove, stirring the pan of lemon chicken piccata, her favorite, and feeling a contented kind of tired. My sleeves were rolled up, a dish towel thrown over my shoulder. From the little Bluetooth speaker on the counter, a mellow playlist I'd made for our road trips last summer kept me company. I'd left work an hour early to do this. Sarah had been stressed about a big presentation at her marketing firm, and I knew she'd come home frayed, talking a mile a minute about client demands and unreasonable timelines. The plan was simple: good food, a foot rub, and the reminder that the world outside our apartment didn't matter. I'd even picked up the expensive Pinot Grigio she liked, the one I called the $40 headache, but bought anyway because it made her smile. My phone buzzed on the counter. A notification from my savings account. I'd set up a separate, hidden fund labeled Future. The automatic deposit had just gone in. I swiped it away, a private smile touching my lips. In 6, maybe 7 more months, the ring I'd been eyeing online would be more than a tab left open in my browser. It would be in my pocket, and I'd be planning how to ask her. The thought didn't scare me. It felt like the most natural next step in a story I was lucky to be living. I heard the front door open and close, the familiar thump of her bag hitting the floor. "Honey, I'm home," she called out, her voice tinged with theatrical weariness. In the kitchen, I called back, cranking the heat under the green beans. Just in time. "How was the beast?" She appeared in the doorway, heels in hand, a sleek silhouette against the warm light. Sarah was beautiful in a sharp, undeniable way. For 3 years, that sight had given me a little jolt of, how did I get so lucky? It still did. "The beast is slain, and I am victorious," she declared, dropping her shoes and padding over to press a quick, greasy kiss to my cheek. She peeked into the pan. "You're a saint. A domestic, culinary saint. I'd have just cried into a bowl of cereal. That's why I'm here," I said, bumping her hip with mine. "To elevate you from cereal-based despair." She grinned, snagging a piece of chicken from the pan and blowing on it. "And you do it so well." She popped it in her mouth, her eyes closing. "Perfect. God, marry me." My heart did a stupid, hopeful flip. "Careful. I might take you up on that." She laughed, a light, breezy sound, and opened the fridge for the wine. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves, rockstar. One perfect dinner at a time." She poured 2 generous glasses, handing one to me. "To surviving Thursdays." "To Thursdays," I clinked, pushing down the tiny, familiar flutter of deflection. She wasn't ready. That was okay. I could wait. We ate at the small table by the window, the city lights beginning to glitter below. She talked, animated, about her presentation win, about the client's praise, about her boss finally recognizing her genius. I listened, nodding, asking the right questions, feeling proud. This was our rhythm. Her dreams were big and bright, and I loved being the stable ground she launched from. After dinner, she insisted on doing the dishes since I'd cooked. I didn't argue, retreating to the couch with my wine glass. I could hear her humming, the clatter of plates. This was peace. This was the whole point. Her phone, charging on the coffee table, buzzed. The screen lit up with a notification. Ryan flexed biceps. A gym emoji. I looked away. Ryan was her new trainer, a subject that had come up a lot the past 2 months. "He's so motivational," she'd say. "He just gets what it takes to transform." I'd seen his Instagram. All bicep curls and predatory smiles. I'd shaken the feeling off as insecurity. She was with me. She came home to me. The landline in the kitchen rang, the old wall phone she kept for her mom, who refused to figure out cell phones. Sarah answered it, her voice bright. "Hey, Mom." "Yeah, just finished dinner." "No, Mark cooked." "Yeah, it was good." I took a sip of wine, scrolling idly through my phone, only half listening to the soothing murmur of her side of the conversation, the comfortable domestic sounds. Then her voice changed. It dropped, became conspiratorial. She must have walked into the living room, thinking I was in the bedroom or the bathroom. But I was right around the corner, invisible on the couch. "I know, Mom. I know," she said, a sigh heavy in her voice. It was the sigh she used when discussing a tedious work project. "You don't have to keep asking." A pause. I stopped scrolling. "Look, he's fine. He's stable. He loves me, obviously. It's easy." The words were like little drips of cold water down my spine. "Fine. Stable. Easy. I'm not wasting anything," she said, a hint of defensiveness creeping in. "It's just practical. Do you know what my rent would be alone? And he handles all the boring stuff, the car repairs, the taxes. It's like having a live-in assistant who pays half the bills." The glass of wine felt suddenly heavy in my hand. The liquid, moments ago a pleasant golden hue, now looked toxic. Her voice lowered further, a whisper meant to be secret. "I'm just keeping my options open, okay? Ryan from the gym, he's different. He's got that startup vibe, he's going places. It's exciting. He texted me today about getting drinks this weekend. Mark is just safe." Safe. The word hung in the air, suffocating. It wasn't a compliment. It was a diagnosis of a terminal dullness. Then came the knife, delivered with the casual cruelty of someone discussing the weather. "I've got a timeline, don't worry. If nothing better works out by, say, my birthday, I'll probably just settle with him. At least I know he'll never leave." Settle with him. The words didn't just land. They vaporized the reality of the last 3 years. Every "I love you," every quiet moment of support, every sacrifice, every dream I'd whispered in the dark, it all dissolved into a single, stark transaction. I was the fallback plan, the consolation prize, the safe harbor she'd dock in if her ship didn't find a more glamorous port. A strange, metallic silence filled my head, drowning out her continued murmurs to her mother. I looked at my hand. It was perfectly steady. I set the wine glass down on the coffee table without a sound. The smell of lemon and garlic, so comforting moments ago, now turned my stomach. It was the smell of a performance I hadn't known I was starring in. I stood up. The movement was automatic. I didn't look toward the hallway where her voice still quietly schemed. I walked into our bedroom, my steps measured and silent. I went to the closet and pulled out my old duffel bag from the top shelf. I opened my dresser drawers. I didn't think. I just acted. Socks, underwear, t-shirts, a couple of pairs of jeans. I took the essentials from the bathroom: toothbrush, razor, deodorant, my passport, social security card, and the folder with my car title from the fireproof lockbox, my laptop and its charger from the desk. I packed with a chilling efficiency. I left every gift she'd ever given me: the watch, the sweater, the first edition book. I left the framed photos on the dresser. I left the future I'd been building in my mind, like a sandcastle I now saw was built on a tidal flat. From the small desk in the corner, I took a single piece of printer paper and a pen. I stood there, listening to the distant murmur of her voice, still plotting her escape from the prison of my devotion. The note needed no thought. The words were already there, formed from the ashes of her own. In clean, capital letters, I wrote, "Something better worked out. Good luck settling." I didn't sign it. She would know. I walked back to the kitchen. The burnt remains of the green beans were still in the pan. I placed the note squarely on the counter, weighting it down with the corkscrew from the expensive bottle of wine. I slung the duffel bag over my shoulder. I didn't take a last look around. There was nothing here for me anymore. Just the set of a play that had closed, abruptly and forever. I opened the front door and stepped out into the hallway, pulling it shut behind me with a soft, final click. The sound of her voice was gone. The elevator ride down was silent. My reflection in the brushed steel doors looked unfamiliar, calm, emptied out, like a house after the movers have left. I got into my car, threw the duffel bag into the passenger seat, and started the engine. As I pulled away from the curb, I didn't look up at the window of the apartment I called home. I just drove, the city lights blurring into streaks of meaningless color, the numb, clean silence filling the space where my heart had been. The numbness held, a thick, insulating blanket between my nervous system and the world. I drove on autopilot, my hands loose on the wheel, following the familiar route not to my usual after-work bar or a friend's place, but to a generic, mid-tier chain hotel on the other side of the city. It was a place for business travelers and discreet affairs, anonymous and clean. Perfect. I paid for a week in cash from my emergency fund, a habit my financially cautious father had drilled into me that now felt like a prescient act of self-preservation. The room was beige and silent. I dropped the duffel bag on the luggage rack, the thud echoing in the sterile space. For a long moment, I just stood there, listening to the hum of the mini fridge. Then, moving with the same methodical calm, I took out my phone. I didn't scroll through photos or reread old texts. I went straight to the settings. I removed her from my Find My Friends. I changed the password on our shared streaming account, the one under my email, my credit card. I unfollowed her on every social media platform. Not a block, not yet. An unfollow was quieter, less dramatic. It was an erasure of her from my daily view. I set her contact to Do Not Disturb, silencing the storm I knew was coming without giving her the satisfaction of an immediate, angry block. Only then did I sit on the edge of the stiff bed. The numbness began to recede, not into a torrent of grief, but into a vast, hollowed-out clarity. The memories came, not as painful stabs, but as evidence in a case I'd been too blind to prosecute. The way she'd roll her eyes, ever so slightly, when I talked about my project restoring the old Mustang in my dad's garage. It's just a car, babe. Wouldn't the money be better in, like, an index fund? The time I'd surprised her with tickets to see her favorite band, and she'd complained about the seats for 20 minutes before texting someone, Ryan, through half the concert. Her joking nickname for me, the administrator. Because I handled things. Because I was reliable. I had thought it was love. It was management. She was the CEO of her own life, and I was a dependable, low-maintenance department head, facilities, and emotional support. A cold, sharp laugh escaped me, bouncing off the hotel walls. It wasn't funny. It was the sound of a bone-deep realization, shocking in its simplicity. She had never seen me. Not the real me. She'd seen a utility. My phone lit up on the nightstand. A call. Sarah, 2 hearts flashed on the screen. The heart emoji I'd added 2 years ago now looked like a grotesque parody. I watched it ring. I watched it go to voicemail. A minute later, it rang again. And again. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. I felt a profound, almost spiritual detachment. The man who would have jumped to answer, who would have soothed her worries, who lived for that little flash of her name on his screen, he was gone. Packed away with the rest of the illusions in that apartment. I picked up the phone, not to answer, but to bear witness. I opened my voicemail and put it on speaker, setting the phone down as her voice, tight with confused irritation, filled the beige room. Voicemail 1, 9:14 p.m. Mark, what the hell? Where are you? What is this note supposed to mean? Something better worked out. Are you having a nervous breakdown? Call me. Now. Beep. The tone was annoyance. The anger of a CEO finding a key employee had left without notice. I felt nothing. Voicemail 2, 9:27 p.m. Okay, seriously. This isn't funny. I'm getting worried. Did you get in an accident? Just call me or text me so I know you're not dead in a ditch. A sliver of genuine fear, quickly smothered by self-concern. Beep. Voicemail 3, 9:45 p.m. I found the corkscrew on your note. Real mature. Look, whatever you think you heard, you misunderstood. Mom was stressing me out about us getting older, and I just said stuff to placate her. You know how she is. Come home so we can talk like adults. Beep. Placate her. The word choice was telling. Our relationship, to her, was a thing to be managed with her mother. A narrative to control. The calls kept coming, every 7 to 10 minutes. I stopped listening to each one, but I let them pile up, a digital monument to her growing panic. The tone shifted around the 12th or 13th call. Voicemail 13, 10:58 p.m. Her voice was thinner, higher. Mark, please. Just talk to me. I'm sorry for whatever you think you heard. You're taking this way out of context. Please. I'm sitting here alone and I'm scared. A sniffle. Was it real? An hour ago, I would have moved heaven and earth at that sound. Now it was just noise. Beep. Then, the texts started flooding in, a parallel stream of desperation. Sarah, 10:02 p.m. Where are you? Sarah, 10:05 p.m. This is insane. You're being insane. Sarah, 10:20 p.m. Okay. I'm sorry I said that. Please come home. Sarah, 10:45 p.m. We can talk about it. You're overreacting. It was a private conversation. Sarah, 11:15 p.m. Mark. Answer your phone. I got up, went to the mini fridge, and took out a small, overpriced bottle of water. I drank it slowly, looking out the window at the parking lot lights. I was a ghost in a machine, observing the system break down from the outside. Around midnight, the nature of the messages changed again. The pleading took on a new, frantic edge. Voicemail 24, 12:07 a.m. Her voice was a raw whisper. He's not answering. Ryan. I called him after you left because I was upset and he's a friend. And he said he was busy. He said maybe this weekend wasn't good. Mark, please. I need you. A part of me, the old, wounded part, felt a vicious spike of satisfaction. The exciting startup vibe had better things to do. It was swiftly buried under a mountain of indifference. Her need for me was born from sudden scarcity, not genuine value. The texts became unhinged. Sarah, 12:30 a.m. I made a mistake. You're not settling. I was stupid. It was just talk. Sarah, 12:41 a.m. You promised you'd never leave. You promised. Sarah, 1:05 a.m. I love you. I do. You have to believe me. You have to. A command. Even in her abject pleading, the entitlement peeked through. I was supposed to be there, absorbing this, fixing this. My refusal to play my part was, in her eyes, the ultimate betrayal. I finally picked up the phone, not to answer her, but to send a single text to my oldest friend, David. He lived 3 time zones away, an insomniac graphic designer. Me, 1:17 a.m. Hey. Left Sarah. It's done. Don't want to talk tonight. Just didn't want you to hear a wild version later. I'm safe. His reply was instant. David, holy shit. Okay. Safe is the main thing. Drink water. I'm here. No details needed. The simple, unquestioning support was an anchor in the strange, silent sea I was floating in. I didn't cry. I felt dehydrated, empty. The last voicemail came in at 2:03 a.m. Her voice was shattered, barely audible through tears that sounded real this time, born of pure, terrified consequence. Voicemail 40, 2:03 a.m. I don't know what to do. I'm sitting on the floor in the kitchen. It's so quiet. Please, please, Mark. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me like this. You're my person. You can't just disappear. You can't just disappear. But I could. I had. The administrator had resigned. The safe harbor had lifted its anchor and sailed into the dark. I plugged my phone into the charger, screen down. I took a shower in the generic hotel bathroom, scrubbing off the smell of the lemon chicken, the scent of our old life. I lay down in the unfamiliar bed in the dark, the sporadic buzz of my phone on the nightstand a fading echo of a world that no longer concerned me. As I drifted into a shallow, dreamless sleep, my final thought was not of her, or the apartment, or the future I'd lost. It was a simple, practical consideration for the morning. I needed to find a realtor and a lawyer. The business of unmerging a life, it seemed, was the first order of business for my new one. The silence, for the first time in years, felt like peace, not loneliness. The first morning in the hotel, I woke up at 6:07 a.m., a full hour before my alarm. For a disorienting second, I didn't know where I was. Then the sterile beige walls snapped me into the present, and with it came not a wave of grief, but a profound sense of purpose. I had 47 missed calls and a text stream that read like the stages of grief written by a sociopath. I didn't read them. I opened my laptop, found the number for the best-reviewed divorce attorney in the city, and booked a consultation for that afternoon. Then I found a realtor who specialized in quick, quiet sales. My next call was to my landlord, explaining there had been a sudden domestic severance, and I was vacating my half of the lease, effective immediately. I offered to pay 2 months' rent to avoid penalty. He, an older man who'd seen it all, just sighed and said, "Email me the formal notice, son." Sorry to hear it. By 9 a.m., I was sitting in a coffee shop, the attorney's retainer agreement signed and emailed back. The process was cold, clinical, and exactly what I needed. My marriage, or what I'd thought was a prelude to one, was now a matter of asset division. There were no shared assets except a cat she'd adopted and I'd paid for. She could have it. My phone buzzed. It wasn't Sarah. It was her mother, Diane. I answered, not out of obligation, but curiosity. "Mark? Thank God. Sarah is beside herself. What on earth is going on?" Her voice was a practiced blend of concern and condescension. "I'm sure she is, Diane," I said, my voice flat and even. "She said you left some nasty note and disappeared. She heard you listening in on a private conversation with her mother and completely overreacted. I didn't listen in, I corrected calmly. I was in my own home. She spoke within earshot, and I didn't overreact. I reacted appropriately to the information I received. It was girl talk, Mark. You know how we are. She didn't mean it. I took a sip of coffee. She meant every word. She just didn't mean for me to hear them. The truth doesn't become a lie just because it's overheard. Diane sputtered. After everything you've built, you're going to throw it away because of a silly phone call. She's devastated. What we built, I said slowly, was a fiction where I was the dependable placeholder. The foundation was rotten, Diane. I'm just leaving before the whole thing collapses. I'd suggest you advise your daughter to do the same. I hung up. I blocked her number. The act felt less like anger and more like brushing dust off my shoulders. The text from Sarah's friends began around noon. Jenna, the self-appointed ringleader of their group. Jenna, 12:15 p.m. Mark, WTF? Sarah is a mess. You need to man up and talk to her. This is cruel. Me, 12:20 p.m. Ask her exactly what she said to her mother on the phone last night. Word for word. Then decide whose side you're on. There was a long pause. Then, Jenna, 1:05 p.m. She said you misunderstood. That you're taking it out of context. I didn't reply. The defense of misunderstanding was a shield for the indefensible. An hour later, another text came. Jenna, 2:11 p.m. Okay. I asked. She told me. Dude, that's fucked up. I'm sorry. I didn't write back. The truth, once aired, had a way of freeing the decent people and exposing the rest. The following week was a study in silent reorganization. I found a furnished apartment with a 6-month lease, a clean, modern box with no memories. I joined a gym, not the fancy one where Ryan worked, but a no-nonsense powerlifting gym downtown. The brutal, simple physics of moving heavy weight was a better salve than any therapy. I reconnected with friends I'd let lapse. David flew in for a weekend, and we spent it hiking, talking about everything except Sarah. I started saying yes to things, a colleague's indie film screening, a pickup basketball game, a coding workshop I'd always put off. Life, I discovered, was vast and full of interesting corners when it wasn't being funneled through the narrow lens of her approval. The karma reached me in fragments, relayed by the one mutual friend, Ben, who remained neutral. Ryan. Ben said over beers 2 months in, shaking his head. Total piece of work. Used her as a revenge fuck against his ex, apparently. Once Sarah started getting clingy, he ghosted. Posted a story at some club with a bunch of new girls the next weekend. I felt nothing. Not schadenfreude. Not pity. It was like hearing a weather report for a country I'd never visit. And Sarah? I asked, not because I cared, but because it was the expected follow-up. Ben swirled his pint. Not good, man. She told everyone you had a breakdown, abandoned her. But then Jenna told a few people what she actually said. It split the friend group. She's blaming you for ruining her reputation. She got passed over for a promotion she was sure she'd get. Rumor is she's been drinking too much, showing up to work looking rough. I nodded. I'm sorry to hear she's struggling, I said, the words automatic and utterly empty. I wasn't sorry. Her consequences were hers alone. 6 months to the day after I left the note, an invitation arrived via email to the wedding of our mutual friends, Cara and James. I'd been best man at James's brother's wedding. Our social ties were deep. For a moment, I considered declining, but hiding felt like I was still governed by her. I wasn't. I had a +1. I'd been seeing Emily for 3 months. She was a landscape architect with a calm, grounded energy and a laugh that came from her belly. She knew the broad strokes of my past, the edited, non-bitter version. When I showed her the invite, she just smiled and said, I've heard Cara makes a great cake. I'm in if you are. The morning of the wedding, I put on a tailored navy suit I'd bought for myself, a celebration of the new job I'd landed. Emily wore a simple emerald green dress that made her eyes sparkle. She looked at me as I straightened my tie. You good? She asked, her hand on my arm. I looked at our reflection in the mirror. A confident man, a beautiful woman, a united front of quiet happiness. I've never been better, I said, and meant it. The wedding was at a botanical garden conservatory. Strings of lights glittered against the glass ceiling, and the air was thick with the scent of flowers and champagne. I held Emily's hand as we mingled, exchanging easy greetings with old friends who did double takes, then broke into genuine smiles. The narrative of my breakdown clearly hadn't held water here. I saw Sarah from across the room before she saw me. She was standing near a potted fern, alone, holding a glass of white wine. She wore a tight black dress that aimed for sophistication but landed on strained. Her makeup was impeccable but heavy, a mask over a palpable fatigue. She was scanning the crowd, her posture rigid. She looked like a guest at someone else's celebration. Our eyes met. Her whole body jerked as if shocked. The color drained from her face, then flooded back in a blotchy red. Her gaze darted from me to Emily, her hand in mine, and her expression cycled through shock, fury, and a desperate, pathetic hope. She set her glass down with a clatter and began weaving through the crowd toward us. Emily squeezed my hand. "That's her, isn't it?" "Yes." "Do you want me to?" "Stay right here," I said, my voice calm. "Please." Sarah stopped a few feet away, her eyes drinking me in with a hunger that turned my stomach. "Mark." My name was a breathy exhale. You came." "Kara and James are good friends," I said, my tone polite, the way you'd speak to a vague acquaintance. Her eyes flicked to Emily again, then back to me, pleading. Can we talk? For a minute? Privately. Anything you need to say can be said here," I replied. Emily gave a small, supportive nod. Sarah's composure cracked. She took a half-step closer, her voice dropping to a frantic whisper. "Please, just 5 minutes. You owe me that much." "I don't owe you anything, Sarah." She flinched. The directness, delivered without malice, was a slap. She regrouped, trying a shaky smile. "You look really good." "Thank you. I think about that note every day," she blurted out, the words spilling. "Something better worked out." Was that just to hurt me? To get back at me? I looked at her, truly looked at her, and felt a distant, academic pity. She still thought this was about her. A dramatic twist in her story. "No," I said, my voice even. It was a statement of fact. I glanced at Emily, who offered a small, private smile. It did. Sarah's face crumpled. The mask dissolved into raw, ugly need. "So what? She's your revenge," she hissed, her voice trembling. "You moved on that fast to prove a point? We had 3 years, Mark. 3 years. I didn't rise to it. The anger she wanted, the emotional engagement, was a currency I no longer dealt in. Sarah, you told your mother you were waiting for something better than me. You got your wish. You're not with me. I hope you found what you were looking for." But I didn't. The cry was too loud. A few people nearby glanced over. I was wrong. Ryan was a liar. My friends are assholes. Work is hell. I was wrong. Don't you get it? I made a mistake. I nodded slowly. I know you were wrong. But that's not my concern anymore. The finality in my voice broke her. The desperation curdled into something darker, more familiar. Her eyes narrowed, the victim's plea shifting into the accuser's snarl. "You're just cold now, aren't you? After everything I gave you. I made you. I gave you a life. And you just left me." This was the real Sarah. The one who saw love as a bestowal of favor, a transformation she performed on a willing subject. I felt Emily's hand tighten in mine, not in anxiety, but in solidarity. "You didn't make me, Sarah," I said, my voice so quiet she had to lean in to hear it over the music. "You managed me, and I resigned. Excuse me." I didn't wait for a reply. I turned, gently guiding Emily with me, and walked away. I didn't look back. I led Emily to the dance floor, where a slow song had begun. I took her in my arms, and we began to move. Over her shoulder, in the reflection of the dark glass, I saw the final image. Sarah stood frozen where we'd left her, utterly alone in the crowd, her hands clenched at her sides. She was a statue of defeat. Then, she turned and almost ran, disappearing into the shadows of the ferns. I focused on the woman in my arms. Emily rested her head on my shoulder. "You okay?" she murmured. I pulled her closer, the warmth of her a tangible contrast to the cold memory already fading behind me. The music swelled, the lights twinkled, and the future, bright and unburdened, stretched out before us. "I'm perfect," I said. And I was. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.